basically you will also be able to understand what the basically it gives you immense pressure for me to introduce myself to you guys. Okay, so give me a second. It's a bit hang up. Alright guys, to talk about a bit brief about myself, I'm Srikanth here. The Srikanth category is my name, and I'm here with about 14 years of my IT experience so far, and which most of my experience pretty much belonging to, especially in the BI segment. Well, over last 10 to 11 years of my experience pretty much in the BI segment, especially comprising data warehousing and BI system solutions implementations, architecting, designing, building, and eventually deployment of BI solutions across various business domains, which to start, namely basically from various other various business domains to start talk about telcos, FSI, banking and financial services, and manufacturing domains, etc., for various customer bases across the globe, guys. Right, I spend most of my time in BI segment of largely in my IT career with various BI tools and basically technologies utilizing, such as Informatica as an ETL platform, business object data services, and SAP-based BI suite systems. All right, so to name a few. I also have some experience in implementing some solutions using MicroStrategy and Cognos BI, etc., guys. Right, so I have had a capacity. I have had opportunity to manage BI practices in the global centric environments, wherein I used to handle a bunch of folks working underneath us to help deploy BI solutions to various customer bases, guys. All right, so that's a bit brief about myself, guys, and I will be your trainer for this program, SAP Hana program, and eventually, we'll talk about the today's agenda, guys. Right, as part of the today's agenda, I'm actually going to give you some brief introduction about what Hana is all about, and what comprises Hana, and what is the thing that you would expect with Hana as opposed to any other BI systems tools that exist currently in the market, etc. It's basically a very brief introduction about Hana today. Right, to start with this, guys, I'm going to introduce you to talk about Hana. To understand what is Hana. Alright guys, Hana. Abbreviation of Hana stands for High Performance Analytical Appliance. Hana stands for High Performance Analytical Appliance. It is basically, it's an in-memory computing appliance. Basically, it's an appliance, meaning that an appliance which comprises both hardware as well as software platforms combined, collated together to form a physical appliance, guys, like a server computing system. However, this appliance is it's a hardware and software combination, and predominantly it integrates with numerous SAP business suites, guys, business suite applications, SAP components such as, you may talk about SAP components such as SAP ERP systems, SAP CRM systems, BI systems, etc., etc. It's basically an appliance which is comprising both hardware as well as software components bundled together. Right? It's a flexible data source agnostic appliance, meaning that this is an appliance which is not dependent on any specific data source. You may call it as an open-end appliance. Basically, it can accept the data from any kind of application source, basically, and it also allows the customers to analyze massive volumes of transactional data. Okay, massive volumes of transactional data, meaning that transactional data which might turn into several hundreds of millions of rows, or probably you may put it as probably a billion of rows, several billions of transactional rows, which can be analyzed in real-time fashion. Like I stated, this is an appliance which integrates primarily with SAP components. SAP components predominantly talks about SAP-based ERP systems. These ERP systems may produce transactional data which may scale up to, like I stated, depends on the line of business which it is involves. Transactional data may be tuning up to several hundreds of millions of transactions in real time. Basically, this appliance can facilitate providing transactional data analysis to produce analytics. This analytics will in turn enable business systems or business drivers to make effective business decisions, guys. Right? So far we are talking about analytics. Basically, analytics talks about an information pertaining to a business, guys. Analytic may comprise a sales revenue. Analytic may comprise product line items, basically number of items that have been sold. Analytic may comprise, costing, etc. Typically, in the current generation business suite systems, or current generation analytical appliances, basically data warehousing systems or appliances, basically, what happens here is that these current generation business suite system, in order for you to compute these analytics, you may have to procure the data from different business suite systems, different disparate data sources, eventually consolidate this business information into one stream, and go on to build, aggregate tables, analyze data, which typically takes a longer turnaround time. In generally, most of the current generation data warehouse systems are BI systems, which is typically a month of time, guys. And in other words, it stands something like this. You would start analyzing the business information of last month or previous months by end of this month, guys. Example, start of this month, let's say you're talking about July transactional data, you can only be able to visualize or analyze the business and analyze the analytics start of subsequent month, which is August first week, etc. Right? So basically, the whole idea of HANA is basically to produce real-time analytics. The moment I say real-time analytics, which talks about business information collaborated up to the latest transaction possible. Meaning that if your enterprise, your ERP business suite system, let's say an SAP ERP system, will issue a sales order. The created sales order, once a sales order is created into the SAP ERP system, eventually that created ERP system sales order will get translated into underneath the SAP HANA business suite system, thus making that particular transaction readily available in real time for your analysis, thus avoiding the need to materialize transformations. In other words, in current generation business suite systems or current generation data warehouse systems, basically, what you go on to do is you pick up this data on a periodical basis, typically end of the day. Eventually, you go on to define transformations to eliminate redundancies, consolidate these data to define aggregations, and eventually start loading this data into the enterprise scale data warehouse or probably a data mart system. Only then you can be able to analyze this transaction. However, with HANA, this transaction can be analyzed absolutely for that particular period of time instantly. Basically your analysis can comprise the latest transaction that has just been generated from the SAP business suite system, guys. Right? So predominantly HANA is delivered as an optimized appliance. Okay, it's an optimized appliance in conjunction with leading SAP hardware partners. Okay, the moment I said a while ago that HANA is an appliance, I have also explained to you that an appliance, which stands for combination of both hardware, suite of applications, collaborated with corresponding software put together. In such an event, guys, when you that's right. But however, SAP is not a hardware vendor, isn't it? SAP does not produce any hardware. But however, What they produce is basically an ERP business suite systems or basically a CRM system sort of stuff. Basically, they are a business process or business software manufacturing company, in other words, basically. However, in order to attain this, SAP has partnered with a leading hardware partners, guys, which includes, to name a few, IBM. This is one of the primary vendor to procure hardware, basically IBM, HP, Fujitsu, Cisco, Dell, etc. guys. It has partnered with various different kind of vendors to produce or basically procure the corresponding hardware which is suited for HANA appliance. Eventually, SAP will set up its software instance on top of this procured hardware and sell it as a bundled unit. Like I stated, it's an appliance, guys. Is that clear, guys, so far? Folks, any questions? Alright, let us talk a bit brief about it. Like I stated, it's an in-memory computing appliance. Let us understand what is in-memory computing at first. In-memory computing technology. In-memory computing technology, which exists in the business for several years now. The whole idea of this in-memory computing technology is that it facilitates applications to run utilizing server computers' main memory, guys. In other words, your server's main memory is going to be utilized or used as, okay, your server's main memory is being utilized as basically a storage space, guys. Instead of storing or running the applications from your hard disk, but however, utilizing the server's main memory as a source of storage space and running the business applications. In other words, simply this is known as in-memory computing technology. Right. This exists for some time, guys. Even SAP has some of the in-memory computing products in its cache for some time now. The very first product SAP has released using in-memory computing technology is called BI Accelerator, which is they first released in some time in early in the end of 2006 or 2007, way back, guys. Then after, SAP has acquired an organization known as Business Objects, which is basically a reporting application company, guys. It's way back in 2007. After that, SAP has released another in-memory reporting application platform in the form of Business Object Explorer. That is a second solution that they have deployed or basically released by SAP in the past. And eventually, they've come up with this in-memory computing database engine known as Hana, which typically utilizes, like I stated, server computers' main memory as a storage mechanism, as a processing area to facilitate business process requests, guys. Right? Hana effectively designed to utilize technological innovations in both hardware as well as in software industry, guys. Let us understand what I mean by the hardware innovations in this area. Then we'll also understand the software technological innovation, how it has been built and how it can basically showcases this over a period of time, guys. Right? It uses latest hardware technological space, basically using the multi-core architectures running on blade servers, guys. A blade server is again a hardware technology, which is basically, blade server is again a hardware platform, which is very tiny in size and comprises massive amount of hardware specifications running multi-core architectures. Several CPUs can be installed into a server, into probably 64 CPUs or even 128 CPUs, etc. A blade server will have a single power input and a single basically network output, but you can define several blades to conform or basically to be part of an enterprise class server, guys. Basically, blade servers are basically pretty much designed to utilize advancements of the hardware technological innovation, which comprising multi-core architectures using the CPU-based architectures and high amount of memory. These systems can hold up to 100 terabyte of RAM. These systems can hold up to 100 terabyte of RAM, guys, to process the business requests. Eventually, guys, if you notice that a simple trend in the hardware technological platforms in the last decade, you might have noticed that procuring a hardware has been pretty economical in the recent past, especially if you talk about the sometime in the last decade. Simply, in the way back in late 90s, to procure a hardware platform which may be comprising a simple specification such as server specifications, guys. Let's talk about server specifications. Let's say in late 90s, if you like to procure a server with the configuration of probably 256 megabytes of RAM, 80 gigabytes of hard disk, and eventually a processing speed of Pentium 3 processor, guys, late 90s. This used to cost quite expensive. Probably it used to cost you somewhere around several thousands of dollars. Whereas in the current generation, well, if you like to procure a hardware platform with a specification such as 8 gigabytes of RAM or probably 32 gigabytes of RAM, 1 terabyte HDD space or disk space, with Intel based Pentium process, probably Pentium process with several cores, probably 8 core rack core, which would pretty much translate and cost you it doesn't really cost you so much of money. Probably it would cost you $1,000 or $1,500 US equivalent to that. If you notice a trend or a period of time, hardware prices have been slashed down at a greater velocity, guys. Especially with the lesser amount that you spend, you don't have to spend so much of amount that you used to spend in the past. Basically, with the lesser amount of money that you spend, eventually you can be able to procure extremely high configuration of hardware platforms. Taking that into consideration, and locally improvised memory, especially the memory is the most economical product at this point in time. Basically, if you talk about memory can be purchased for even a couple of dollars. Basically, if you go on to spend probably if you like to procure an 8 gigabytes of hardware platform, basically a RAM, you might even go on to purchase it less than $100. Using this technological advancement, and using this technological advancement and taking this into consideration, SAP has come up with, has basically developed a software technological innovation to run a specially designed database management system which can utilize effective hardware platform innovations to run through its software engines, guys. This in-memory computing engine is a combination of, like I stated, a software technological innovation as well embedded into it, which includes talking about what it comprises. Basically, it comes with row and column store. Pretty much simply comes with row and column store design. We'll talk about this slightly going ahead. It also facilitates a massive amount of data compression. Basically, if you are storing the data in Hana, it could facilitate massive amount of data compression is being achieved. Apart from this, it supports data partitioning can be done based on column level, or at the same time, by default, a table level partitioning can be associated with Hana. And you don't have to create aggregate tables, guys. Don't need to create aggregate tables. Aggregate tables creation is not necessary. As opposed to the current generation data warehousing systems, you don't have to construct aggregation tables. Along with that, you can also avoid expensive database operations. Pretty much. In other words, running the massive amount of SQL statements to procure or produce a result set, which can be avoided using Hana. We'll see all of these things going forward in more detail going forward in the subsequent slide, guys. Any questions, folks, thus far? Guys, any questions this far? If you need a mic, please let me know. Okay, I can enable the mic for you so that if you have any questions, you can speak. Or alternatively, if you have any clarification, you could as well go on to type in the chat window. All right, guys. Okay, I think it's been clear this far, hopefully. All right, guys. Let's talk a little about the simplified Hana's architecture at first. Eventually, we'll go there. Hana comes with, like I stated, it's an in-memory computing appliance, basically. Let's understand what I mean by that in detail. Okay, it comes with an in-memory computing appliance. It's a Hana hardware platform. This Hana hardware platform comprises, if you purchase a SAP Hana engine or basically an appliance, what you get inside is basically a Hana appliance which is coupled with SAP Hana modeling tool known as SAP Hana Studio. This is basically an interface which will facilitate you to model the content in SAP Hana. The moment we talk about modeling of the content, which talks about creating the entities such as tables, etc., etc. Eventually, you can also go on to construct packages which would facilitate you to procure the data and create multi-dimensional models using which. We'll talk about that slightly later. Okay. Apart from this, Hana also ships with a bunch of interfaces. These interfaces can facilitate you to connect to various different aspects of the business suite systems. It comes with an interface to connect to SAP business suite systems, guys. You can connect to SAP business suite system, which talks about SAP ERP systems or CRM systems, etc. Okay, so this interface, using this interface, you can enable real-time data replication from SAP ERP systems into Hana. It has an interface which can be configured to facilitate data. Basically, you can facilitate the data transformation, basically. In other words, data replication which can be done from underlying SAP business suite system into Hana in real-time fashion, guys. Apart from this, it also supports the data to be extracted from non-SAP data sources. Okay, an organization may comprise various kind of business applications. Some may be dependent on SAP business suites. Some may be dependent on custom business suite of applications which have been defined, coded in the form of technological info suites such as Java, or even for that matter, data which might have been stored or created in the form of .NET based applications which may use a special basically underlying business suite, basically storing the data in the form of Oracle systems or SQL servers, etc. Such data can also be extracted and moved into Hana. In order for you to facilitate moving such data, Hana has an ETL software. Basically, it supports an enterprise class ETL software called Business Object Data Services. Using the BODS ETL platform, we can be able to extract data which is non-SAP based, which may be compliant on which may be on SQL Server based data or any other database, or data which might be extracted from the underlying business suite application platforms, or even for that matter, extracting the data in from the flat files, etc. Such data you can be able to extract from SAP BODS platform as Business Object Data Services Enterprise Scale ETL platform. This BODS basically bundles with BODS license is being bundled with purchasing of SAP HANA Enterprise platform, guys. BODS comes free with procuring SAP HANA appliance. So you can use BODS system to procure the data from non-SAP data, like I stated, from external database management systems, as well as SAP business suite systems such as BI. SAP BW BI systems data can also be procured from these business application systems into HANA, guys. Once the data is available in HANA, okay, you can go on to model this information using modeling tool. It's a single client interface available for HANA. It's called HANA Studio. Using the HANA Studio, you can be able to create entities such as tables, and eventually you can also go on to create a content packages which are being used to define analytical content such as creating uh, dimensions, fact tables, etc. That something can be achieved using Hana Studio, guys. It's basically a modeling can be done using a client interface known as Hana Studio. Right. Subsequent to that, once this has been achieved or been done with, you can also facilitate. Okay, it also has interfaces to develop, administer the HANA database engine, as well as you can also facilitate developing custom software development, guys. It also has an interfaces to develop custom software such as writing something in the form of Java or maybe an X-based languages, etc., which can also be supported using HANA modeling interface, guys. Because this interface has been developed using a Java-based suite product called Eclipse. HANA Studio is something which is developed using Eclipse. From the Eclipse platform, you can go on to uh, develop some piece of code which can be written in Java or even X-based interfaces, guys. Right? Then after, it also supports interfaces for reporting, guys, which also includes the interfaces for reporting, which talks about the basically once the data has been modeled and stored into HANA, which can be extracted as produced in the form of reports using Microsoft Excel. Okay, Microsoft Excel is also acts as enterprise, basically a reporting platform for HANA. Apart from this, SAP also has its business suite product called SAP Business Object Suite. BO Business Object Suite of reporting products are pretty much tightly integrated with HANA. Right, so basically you can also procure the data of HANA using Business Objects Reporting tool to procure the HANA data and start producing the reporting, guys. The reporting interfaces are basically business objects as well as Microsoft Excel to start with, guys. Basically, it doesn't mean that it also be able to connect to various rest of the other application reporting platforms such as Cognos or any other platform. However, this is basically SAP's certified reporting application platform is Business Objects Reporting tool. Right. So in a nutshell, this talks about the simplified architecture of SAP HANA, guys. Is it clear, folks? Any questions? Right, guys. Let me just talk about the. Give me a second. A storage structure in HANA, guys. In terms of, like I stated, we are talking about the row store and column store structures that's available in HANA in terms of the data storage. Let us understand what are these different structures, how they could basically, how does these differentiate basically. Right, HANA supports storing the data in two forms. One is storing the data in the form of a row. Other one is basically storing the data in the form of a column. If you talk about traditional database management systems such as SQL servers, Oracle, or DB2 or any other database management system, which stores all the data in the form of a row, guys. The moment I say a row, basically, which may comprising the data, all the data pertaining to a specific entity is been stored as a single row, guys. Just a second. Let me showcase you a sample of the data set so it will make easier for you to understand. Just a second, guys. Let me showcase you an example. It illustrates much better for you. Just a second. Okay guys, here we go. Alright, so let us take a simple example guys. Let us say I have a data set. I have a data set which has been stored in the form of like this guys. It comprises of 4 different columns. One is column name customer, country, a product, and amount. Okay, customer, country, product, and amount. Let's say I have a customer called 100 who comes from a country called Denmark or DE, who procured a product called product number 1, and an amount for the same is paid about $100. Similarly, another customer 100, country Denmark, DE, product 1, $110. Customer 200, United States, product 1, $120, and 300, United States, product 2, and $130. Let us take this simple data set. Let us understand how does the data storage happens in a traditional database management systems by storing this data, guys. Right, so traditional RDBMS systems store this data in the form of a row, like a row comprising these 4 different columns, guys. A combination of these values will comprise one unique row, guys. Let us understand the storage structure for this. Let us say this customer is basically a data type of integer. A storage type is of integer, which takes about 4 bytes of data storage. And eventually we talk about a country. The country here talks about Denmark, which is basically a varchar data type. And each of this is basically about 2 bytes, 2 letter characters. So it's going to store 2 bytes each. A product is again integer. Each of the values stores about 4 bytes. And amount, which is again as integer, which also needs about 4 bytes of storage space. If we compute all of these details together, okay, that's about 4 plus 2, 6 plus 4, 10 plus 4, 14. So you need about 14 bytes of storage space to store one particular record inside a table. Eventually, to store 4 of these data sets, the values in a table, basically you need about 56 bytes of storage space, guys. Right? If you are storing the data set in the form of a traditional RDBMS structure, you need 56 bytes of data to be stored, or space to be stored. Eventually, if you have to store a similar data set in a Hana specific storage technique called columnar storage, guys. In other words, it talks about the column storage structure. The advantage of this columnar storage structure is that it stores the data in a columnar fashion. Here it is a row fashion, something like this. But however, it's a columnar fashion. A columnar fashion talks about like this. This is one column, this is another column, this is another column, and this is another column. Basically, when you store the data in a columnar structure, basically, customer is one columnar, country another, product, and amount, basically. It does not store repeated values into the data set. Meaning that when you are storing the data in a columnar structure, it all the time stores the information in unique value, guys. It basically stores all of this information in unique value based system itself. If you take a look, 100, customer 100 is been repeated twice in this data set. However, while storing this data in underlying columnar storage, it stores only once. 200 once, 300 once. Basically, even if this customer has another transaction, this transaction information is not being stored into the underlying data storage space, guys. Likewise, if you take the country, there are 2 unique countries exist inside, DE and United States. And these 2 unique countries will present inside here. And the product, there are 2 unique products, 1 and 2. It only stores 2 unique products. Similarly, you have amount, there are 4 unique values. It stores all the 4 unique values, etc. inside. Right? Likewise, because it does not store redundant values, redundant columnar values in a columnar store, okay, it basically saves a massive amount of space, guys. For example, if you talk about this, basically this is again an integer data type. However, it has 3 values. So basically 4 into 3 is 12 bytes. Country, which is 2 bytes each, 2 unique values, 2 into 2, 4 bytes. Product, 2 unique values, and integer 2 into 4, 8 bytes. And amount, 4 unique values. And 4 into 4 is 16 bytes. Cumulatively, if you basically, if you accumulate all of these values, in order for you to store the similar data set in SAP HANA's columnar storage, you only need about 40 bytes of storage space, guys, because the storage type is different. Thus, you would be saving an outrightly about 40% of storage space by default. Apart from this, you might ask me a question, because I'm actually storing the data in this form, with a combination of column values to construct a row. But however, if you are only storing this value in this uniquely into the underlying system, how would I retrieve the data? When I retrieve the data, will I be able to get the same constructive values? What happens here is that when you construct, when you store the data in HANA using a columnar storage structure, what happens here is that each of the columnar table that you create will be associated with an attached row store table. A table which is basically works as a reference point for each of the columnar storage table, guys. It has a single column. That single column will store the address of the row constructive, guys. Let's say when you insert the data into the underlying table with the values such as 100 DE product 1 amount 100, collaboratively you run this data set, you insert this data into the underlying system. This combination of these 4 unique values will create one unique hexadecimal value, guys. It creates one unique hexadecimal value. This created hexadecimal value will be stored in the associated row store table. What happens here is that when you fire an SQL statement, let's say select star from a table, basically customer, where customer ID is 100. What happens here is that this associated row store will get scanned and eventually identify the specified request, such as customer equals to 100, and it will read this information from the associated row store table and go on to pick up its address to procure the associated transactional detail from and construct the result set in this form and produce a data set for you guys. Right? So basically the advantage here is basically if you have to store this information in an associated row store fashion, it does not require a massive amount of space to store the data set. Okay, it's by default it could facilitate you to lesser storage, guys. It basically will allow you to store the information in a lesser time, lesser space, and eventually it also, since the data set its size itself is very small, it is faster to retrieve and easy to access, guys. It also maintains a record of this information in the associated row store. Eventually the row store is being referenced when you fire and corresponding SQL statement to procure this information from the underlying business suite system, guys. Thus this will help businesses to procure the data and analyze the information in unprecedented faster times, guys. Is it clear, folks? Gentlemen, guys, are you clear with this? Any questions? Alright guys, I think that's what I have set forth for this today's session in the demonstration portion, and eventually if you have any questions or concerns, do let me know at this point in time. Or any other questions, guys? Folks, are you clear? Do you have any other questions pertaining to the training or any other thing? Yes, Laila. Do you need a mic? One second. Yeah, Leila, I have the mic for you. Hello, Leila, can you hear me? I can't hear you. No, I can't hear you, Leila. No, unfortunately, no.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I want from here I want to asking. So do I have to need the BI background to take the HANA?
Okay, not essentially, but it would be good to have some SQL knowledge, certainly. SQL knowledge would help a lot because it's basically all this business. End of the day, it's basically everything runs about the data storage techniques. So some basic understanding of data warehousing systems would help, along with understanding of SQL, which quite help a lot.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions, guys? Pawan, do you have a question? All right, folks, then appreciate you coming in for this evening and spending your time listening to the conversation here. Right, so that is all I have for this session here today, and eventually our folks will get in touch with you, respective people, and eventually they will be able to communicate on the start of the course duration, timing of the course to start with, and appropriate timings to of the session timings, etc. They will get in touch with you in the subsequent stuff. And once again, I appreciate you joining us, and thanks for your time. It's been a pleasure seeing you here. Hope to see you again soon. Thank you. Take care and have a wonderful evening or a great morning, guys. Take care. Bye bye.